Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible stories in all of history. It's a tale about a battle that really shouldn't have been won, a commander who made an unbelievable gamble, and a decision to sacrifice his own city in order to save an entire civilization.
So let's start with the central paradox of our story, the one that faced the Athenian general Themistocles. How do you save a city by destroying it? I mean, it sounds completely insane, right? But his answer to that very question wouldn't just decide the fate of Athens, it would literally shape the entire course of Western history.
All right, so to get what's happening, you have to picture the scene. This is a moment of absolute total crisis for the Greeks. The famous heroic stand at Thermopylae has just been wiped out, and now the gigantic Persian army is marching straight for the city of Athens. The city is, without a doubt, in mortal danger.
As you can imagine, the city is in a full-blown panic. And right in the middle of all this chaos, Themistocles stands up and gives a command that is just shocking. Abandon Athens. And listen, this was not a suggestion. It wasn't up for debate. It was a direct order to every single citizen. Get out and leave everything you own behind.
Now, you might be wondering, wait a minute, how can one guy just give an order like that in a democracy? Well, the Athenians had a kind of emergency protocol for moments just like this. It was the position of chief general. Think of it like a temporary dictator, a role that gave one person absolute authority to stop the bickering and just act. They knew that when you're facing total annihilation, quick, decisive action is way more important than endless debate. And the scale of what they pulled off here is just staggering. We're talking about more than 30,000 men, women, and children evacuated by sea to the nearby island of Salamis in less than a month. I mean, for the ancient world, a logistical feat like that was nothing short of a miracle.
So when the Persian king, the great Xerxes, finally marches his army into Athens, he finds a ghost town. It's completely empty. This wasn't the glorious conquest he'd been dreaming of. It felt hollow, like a victory that was just handed to him, not one he'd earned. So in a fit of pure frustration, he orders the city burned to the ground. And across the water, on the island of Salamis, the Athenians could only stand and watch as their homes, their temples, everything they'd ever known went up in smoke.
Okay, so his people are safe for the moment. But Themistocles now has an even bigger, more immediate problem. The very alliance of Greek city-states that was supposed to protect them all was about to completely fall apart.
With Thermopylae lost and Athens now a smoking ruin, the entire Greek strategy was in tatters. So when the allied commanders all get together to figure out what to do next, there's no unity. There's just fear, panic, and a whole lot of arguing. They are completely paralyzed.
And the argument really boils down to two totally different strategies. The Spartans and their allies, they want to fall back. Their plan is to build a huge wall across the Isthmus of Corinth and make a stand there. Which sounds okay until you realize it means completely abandoning Athens and the rest of northern Greece to the Persians. Themistocles, on the other hand, says that's suicide. He is adamant that the only way to win, the only way, is to fight a naval battle in the narrow straits of Salamis, where their smaller, better navy can actually win.
The council is leaning towards the disastrous land plan, so Themistocles decides to play his final card. He issues this unbelievable ultimatum. He says, look, if you won't fight at Salamis, then Athens and our 200 warships, which by the way is more than half the entire Greek fleet, we're done. We will pack up, sail to Italy, and found a new Athens. We'll leave the rest of you to your fate. And this was no bluff. Without the Athenian navy, the rest of Greece was absolutely doomed.
So they reluctantly agree. But Themistocles knows this alliance is hanging by a thread. He knows the other commanders might just chicken out and sail away in the night. He had to force the issue. And what he does next is the single biggest gamble of his life. He decides to manipulate not just his allies, but the enemy too. His plan was as simple as it was treacherous. He was going to send a secret message to the Persian king, Xerxes, and pretend to be a traitor. He'd tell Xerxes that the Greeks are terrified, they're divided, and they're about to escape. He would urge the king to block the straits immediately to trap them. See what he's doing? He's creating a situation where his own allies have no choice but to fight. So under the cover of darkness, he sends a trusted servant with exactly that message. And it played perfectly into Xerxes' arrogance. The king totally bought it. He hears that the Greeks are broken and that an Athenian commander is ready to switch sides. It sounds like an easy win. So he immediately orders his fleet to move in and seal both exits of Salamis Bay. The trap was set.
the deception worked perfectly. The massive Persian fleet sailed right into the one place on Earth where their greatest strength, their sheer numbers, meant absolutely nothing. Themistocles hadn't just chosen a battlefield. He had designed a kill box.
To really get why this worked, you have to picture the geography. Out on the open sea, the huge Persian fleet would have crushed the Greeks. But the Straits of Salamis, that's not open sea. That's an alley fight. And in a tight, cramped space like that, having more ships doesn't help you. It just gets in the way. This was going to be a chaotic, brutal brawl.
And this alley fight was set up to perfectly exploit the differences in their ships. The Greek triremes were purpose-built warships. They were heavy, they were stable, and they had a big bronze ram on the front designed for one thing, punching holes in other ships. The Persian fleet, on the other hand, had a lot of converted merchant ships. They were bigger, sure, but they were also lighter and top-heavy, which made them dangerously easy to flip over.
So as hundreds of these Persian ships pour into this narrow channel, their numbers become their single greatest weakness. Just imagine the worst traffic jam you've ever seen, but on the water. The ships are crammed together, bow to stern. They can't turn, they can't get into formation, they can't maneuver, and they can't escape. They were quite literally sitting ducks. And here's how the traps sprang shut. First, the Greeks pretended to retreat, which lured the Persians even deeper into the narrowest part of the channel. Then the ambush. Hidden Greek ships suddenly emerged from the bays, smashing into the Persian flank and forming a crescent that blocked their escape. The impact was devastating. Those heavy Greek rams just shattered the lighter Persian hulls, which started a massive chain reaction of collisions. And that led to the final phase, total encirclement, as the trapped Persian fleet was just systematically taken apart.
The fighting raged for the entire day. And by sunset, the outcome wasn't just a victory for the Greeks, it was a complete annihilation that would change the course of history.
And get this, Xerxes himself had a golden throne set up on a cliff overlooking the bay. He literally had a front row seat to watch the complete destruction of his supposedly invincible navy. He came expecting to witness a glorious triumph. Instead, he watched his dream of conquering Greece sink ship by ship into the bloody waters below. The final numbers are just mind-blowing. The Greeks lost about 40 ships. The Persians? They lost over 200, with many, many more captured. Their naval power was completely shattered in a single afternoon. This forced Xerxes to retreat and, ultimately, to abandon his invasion of Greece for good.
But this was so much more than just a military victory. This was the first great naval battle in all of recorded history, and its impact was just monumental. It guaranteed that Greece would remain independent. It allowed their culture, this new idea of democracy, of philosophy, of science, to survive and to flourish. It basically secured the foundations of what we now call Western civilization.
The story of Salamis just leaves you with this one powerful question. It's proof that, yes, sometimes one person's strategy, one person's incredible, insane gamble really can change the course of all of human history. Themistocles didn't just save Athens. He secured a future that he couldn't have even imagined. And it really makes you wonder, what other single moments, what other daring gambles out there have defined the world that we all live in today?